And let's first start off with our local headlines with myself and Ashley Blum. Interim New York City Police Commissioner Tom Donlin is expected to step down 1 month after assuming the role. His reasoning includes feeling, quote, under a microscope as law enforcement searched his Upper East Side residence. Mayor Eric Adams is expected to fill the position by next week and thank Donlin for coming in and moving to stabilize. The latest report from nonprofit group Long Island Sound shows that water quality has made significant improvements. However, challenges to improve are still present. In a statement by Senator Heather Summers, read by Save the Sound Representative Peter Linderoth, the senator said with over 98% of open Long Island Sound waters earning a B grade or higher, these positive changes reflect the impact of ongoing efforts to reduce nitrogen pollution, the key factor in harmful algal blooms and low oxygen levels that can damage marine life. The report focuses on areas in Long Island Sound and the bays included in it. So we, at this point, are now 3 days out from the election, and the results have really shown a strong Republican sweep in the Senate and the presidency, and we're still waiting on results for the House of Reps, but it is expected to turn red. Former president, now President-elect Donald Trump, will become the second president in history to have a 4-year gap between his first and second terms, with Grover Cleveland, being the first. Results from the Electoral College are still slowly trickling in, but the electoral count right now is 295 to 226 electoral votes, with Trump over that 270 needed to win. The races in Arizona and Nevada are still too close to call, but Trump does have a lead. On Wednesday, Vice President Kamala Harris called Trump to concede and offered a concession speech from Howard University, where her election watch party was. Here she is now, sound from ABC 7.
My heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright.
President Joe Biden addressed the nation yesterday surrounding the election results. Sound from Fox News.
For over 200 years, America has carried on the greatest experiment in self-government in the history of the world. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. We're the people. The people vote and choose their own leaders, and they do it peacefully. And we're in a democracy. The will of the people always prevails. Yesterday, I spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory. And I assured him that I'd direct my entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. That's what the American people deserve. Yesterday, I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She's been a partner and a public servant. She ran an inspiring campaign, and everyone got to see something that I learned early on to respect so much, her character.
President-elect Trump addressed supporters early Wednesday morning claiming victory. Sound from 11 Live.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Looking to the Senate, Republicans have picked up 4 Senate seats, unseating Democrats in Ohio, Montana, West Virginia, and my home state of Pennsylvania. The races in Arizona and Nevada are still too close to call, with Democrats having a small lead in those Southwest states. In the House of Representatives, no party has a majority just yet, though Republican rule is expected. Currently, 25 races are still being counted across the U.S., and the tally right now is 211 to 199, Republicans leading. Democrats have lost 2 seats thus far. In terms of the governor makeup of the country, Democrats won races in Delaware, Washington, and North Carolina. Republicans won 8 races across the U.S., which makes the balance for governors to be 27 to 23 Republican majority. Not that much matters because that's governors. We're going to move into a new segment that I'm kind of pioneering called The Issues You Should Care About. And this week, we're going to talk about the issue of gun violence. Now, gun violence is an issue that typically resurges following mass casualty incidents in the United States. And right now, it is no different, right? With the school shooting out of Appalachian High School and the shooting in Kentucky leading to a statewide manhunt, gun violence jumps to the front of the news all the time. And gun violence happens every day in every state. You hear it on Newsline all the time. Whether it be accidental shootings, gang violence, or any incident involving a firearm, gun violence is such a normalized part of our society. For example, between 2010 and 2020, gun violence rose 43%, and in 2023, nearly 43,000 people were killed by firearms. For the Republicans and Democrats, they oftentimes differ on the policies behind curbing the rates of firearm deaths here in the United States. For Republicans, it's often about security. Here's J.D. Vance at a rally, sound from NBC.
Clearly, strict gun laws is not the thing that is going to solve this problem. I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. We've got to bolster security so that if a psycho wants to walk through the front door and kill a bunch of children, they're not able to.
And Democrats are often the opposite, pushing for background checks, red flag laws, and a more controlled form of gun access. Now, Republicans typically claim that the Democrats want to take away the guns of those who qualify to have them, but during the presidential debate, which we just discussed, Harris directly mentioned gun control and completely denied those claims.
And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
So it's clear that gun violence plays an intrinsic role to our democracy as a very key issue. Now, I spoke with Dr. Michael Siegel, a professor at Tufts University with an area of research in firearm violence. Here's an interview with him about gun violence and its role right now in the United States. With the most recent mass casualty event surrounding gun violence at the Appalachian High School in Georgia, firearm violence, gun control has again kind of landed back on the table, though it has seldom never left the policy areas of discussion. What are some common sense policies surrounding gun violence that you feel are a necessity in order to curb the number of firearm deaths that we experience here in the United States?
I think that the basic principle that should guide us in reducing firearm violence is the basic principle that I think everybody agrees with. When I say everybody, I mean everybody, regardless of political party, regardless of whether you own a gun or not. And that principle is that people who are at high risk for violence, especially by virtue of having a criminal history of violence, should not have guns. I haven't talked to anyone, even people in the NRA who belong to the NRA, even people who are gun owners, even people who are gun rights advocates, haven't talked to anyone who has told me that they believe that, people that have criminal history of violence and are at a high risk for violence should have access to guns. Nobody has said that. If we all agree on that principle, then we simply need to execute that principle in terms of policy.
Let's move on to a new issue you should care about that I will be focusing on today. And for some of you, I'm sure that the concept of Christian nationalism has been something that people have heard, but maybe not fully gone into. So this interview is supposed to go over what it really means and what impacts it has in this election. So I sat down with Dr. Robert P. Jones. He's an expert on religion and Christian nationalism as a sociologist to talk about what it means and the role that it could play in this upcoming 2024 election. What is the role that Christian nationalism plays in an election year? Are there specific policies or parties that Christian nationalism tends to focus on?
Well, so I'm at an organization, we've been doing public opinion polling for 15 years at PRRI, and one of the things I've been struck by in that time period is how much we've moved away from specific policies driving elections And we've been more in the area of like identity issues driving the election. So, it's not so much that we're disagreeing over policies that are the deepest source of our divisions today. It's over these bigger questions of like, who is a real American? Who is this country for? Right? Those kinds of questions that are really driving us. So there are questions of identity. And so really it's front and center. I would say that it's one of the deepest divisions in the country today is, it really boils down to a question like this, like, is this country a kind of divinely ordained promised land for Christians, or is it a pluralistic, multiracial, multicultural democracy? And really the fights in many ways are around those two fundamental questions.
And I'll be taking that one away. So a poet and novelist from South Korea, Han Kang, became the first Asian woman and South Korean writer to win the Nobel Prize in Literature for her work that, as said by the Nobel Prize Committee, quote, confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. Han has won awards in South Korea and across Europe and is slowly becoming a more recognizable household name for her novels and her writing. Two of her novels received awards, The Vegetarian and Human Acts, which are both novels that speak on themes of humanity and the history of Korea. Han is the second South Korean to be awarded with this prestigious commendation. The only other was former President Kim Dae-jung, who won a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to rebuild a democratic rule in South Korea. Han, in a call with the Swedish Academy, said she was surprised and honored for being given this award, saying that she hopes, quote, this news is nice for Korean literature readers and my friends and writers. She ended the call by saying that she would be having tea with her son and holding a quiet celebration for herself.